Mystical greetings, witches and warlocks, and welcome to another episode of Crystals, Cauldrons, and Conversations, the podcast where we talk about all things witchy, mystical, and magical while also tying in healing, wellness, and personal growth. I'm your magical host, Kaylee, and today's episode, we're diving into the Wheel of the Year. We're exploring the 8 Sabbats and the ancient personal wisdom woven into each sacred turn of the wheel. I am so excited to do this episode with you guys. This is a very important part of paganism is understanding the wheel of the year in case that's something you want to celebrate. This will be my first year celebrating it, so I'm excited for that as well. So to start with our moon muse, the moon is currently in the sign of Aries. So when the moon is in this sign, we may be full of energy and it's important to complete tasks that we've been lacking that motivation to do. So if you've had all these tasks on your to-do list and you've been lacking all that motivation, now's a great time to do it. You might just feel more energy and more motivation to do them. It's also a good time to start projects either at work or in your personal life. So it's a good time to start some new projects. This sign, when the moon is in this sign, it can make us feel more passionate and committed when it comes to those projects. So definitely keep that in mind. The moon phase currently is the waxing moon. So it's recommended to start or continue working on anything that you're hoping to succeed in. So this is really a good time for success. Like I said, it's a great time to start any type of project or even start working on any type of goal that you've had. And it's a good time to cast spells that are related to finding a job, increasing your income, and for romance. So that's our moon muse. Now for our daily enchantment. So today's daily enchantment is a spell for financial stability, which I'm sure many of us can use, myself included. So some supplies you're going to want are a green candle, a bill or a coin, a small plate, and then you can use cinnamon or you can use bergamot oil. I may have butchered that name, I'll be honest. So as always, you want to find a quiet space and a tidy space. And if you're going to use an altar, then prepare your altar and get that ready. You want to be free of distractions. So first, you want to apply the oil to the candle if you're using the oil from the center of the candle towards the ends of it. You want to visualize financial security with each movement. Then you want to place the candle on a plate, and next to it, you want to position the dollar bill or whatever bill you're using or coin. You want to light the candle while reciting these words. With this fire, I invoke stability. May abundance fill my home and my being. So mote it be. I always add so mote it be at the end of my spells to just kind of close them out. And then you want to take a few minutes to meditate and focus on the prosperity and the stability that you're wishing to achieve. And you want to allow the candle to burn completely. And of course, as always, thank the universe for listening to your request. Keep the bill or the coin with you as a prosperity amulet. And again, you can keep it in your wallet, your bag, your purse, whatever, your pocket. It's actually good to perform this during the waxing moon phase because it can enhance it. And just remember to be patient because things do take time to manifest. Nothing is instant magic. And spell casting and rituals do not work like you see them in the movies. So that's our daily enchantment. So let's jump into the Wheel of the Year. So, like I said, this is going to be my very first year celebrating it. So, the Wheel of the Year, as many people practice it today, for those that are in paganism, it comes from a lot of modern pagan traditions, especially Wicca, which is the pathway that I follow. So, in the mid 20th century, people like Gerald Gardner, who is also behind the pathway of Wicca, if you listened to the previous episode on the history of paganism and its pathways, you may have heard the name Gerald Gardner. So, he helped shape what became the contemporary Wiccan practice, and he drew from older traditions of European folk traditions. So the 8 Sabbat system blends the ancient Celtic fire festivals with solar celebrations that were observed across many different cultures for thousands of years. So the wheel is made up of two different types of Sabbats, actually. So the first ones are the solar Sabbats. So these are your solstices and your equinoxes, like you have winter solstice, spring equinox, things like that. And they're based on precise astronomical events. So because the Earth's orbit doesn't line up perfectly with our calendar, these dates will shift slightly each year. So each year when you want to celebrate, you kind of have to do a little bit of research and get the dates, the exact dates. And then the other Sabbats are called the cross quarter Sabbats. So they fall roughly halfway between each solstice and equinox. While their true astronomical midpoint shifts slightly from year to year, ancient agricultural societies fixed them to be predictable calendar dates for that way for the community to celebrate. So we're going to walk this wheel in order so you can learn all about the different Sabbats. We're going to start with Yule. So Yule is the winter solstice. It typically will fall between December 20th and 22nd, and it's most often we've celebrated on December 21st. So most of the time it falls, but because of the way the calendars line up, it can fluctuate. So Yule or the winter solstice is the longest night of the year in the northern hemisphere. So after this point, that's when daylight begins increasing again. Cultures across Europe have celebrated the return of the light and traditions like the Yule log. So if you've ever heard of the Yule log, and the evergreen decorations, they go way before modern Christmas customs. So basically, they predate Christmas. So Christmas was created from the Christian mostly. I mean, there are different ways of celebrating, but the Christian religion came up with Christmas. And before that, Yule was celebrated and the winter solstice was celebrated. So that's where the Yule log came in and even decorating with evergreens. So the themes of Yule are rebirth, hope, and renewal. So I do celebrate Christmas, but this year I plan to celebrate Christmas while also tying in traditions to celebrate Yule as well. So some ways you can celebrate are by lighting candles or a Yule log. I think I'm going to actually get a Yule log. Then reflecting on the past year, which is something people kinda do around New Year's time, but they also do that for Yule as they reflect on the past year, and then they'll set some gentle intentions and spend time in the quiet to rest. So Yule is meant to remind us that even at our darkest point, the light is already returning. So that is Yule. The next one we're gonna talk about is called Imbolc, Imbolc. Imbolc, it's traditionally celebrated on February 1st or 2nd. So this one recently passed last month. Astronomically, the true midpoint between the winter solstice and the spring equinox usually falls around February 3rd or 4th. So this is one of the ones that we celebrate that falls in between a solstice and an equinox. Historically, Celtic communities fixed Imbolc to be on February 1st. It marked the beginning of lambing season and was associated with the goddess Brigid or Brigid, actually, I believe it's pronounced. There's actually a couple of different ways to pronounce that goddess's name. But Brigid is one of the most beloved figures in Celtic spirituality, especially in Ireland. She is the goddess of the sacred flame. So she's strongly connected to fire, but not just like destructive fire. Her fire actually represents inspiration, creativity, transformation, and spiritual illumination. So in ancient Ireland, priestesses as they were called, kept an eternal flame burning in her honor. So she is the goddess also of three sacred arts. She is often called the triple goddess of poetry and inspiration, healing, and smithcraft, which was people who did metalwork and blacksmiths and craftsmanship. So that makes her basically the goddess of both creativity and practical skill. So she is connected to this next Sabbath that we're talking about called Imbolc. So Imbolc, the themes of Imbolc include renewal, purification, and inspiration. The ways that people will celebrate this is also with lighting candles to celebrate the returning of light. People will cleanse their home, set intentions. Setting intentions is pretty much a way of celebrating almost everything in paganism, from the wheel of the year and Sabbats to the moon phases, the full moon, the new moon. There's always some kind of intention setting. That's the manifestation part of it. And it's also, another way to celebrate is by beginning creative projects. So Imbolc is like the spark beneath the snow. You know, we're going from winter solstice, we're in between, we're heading towards the spring equinox, the light's returning. So speaking of the spring equinox, that is the next one that falls on the wheel of the year, and that's actually called Ostara. So or Ostara, however you prefer to pronounce it. I say Ostara. So the spring equinox usually falls between March 19th and March 21st. Most often it'll fall on March 20th. Speaking of spring equinox, that is The next one we're gonna talk about, which is Ostara. That is what the spring equinox is called, Ostara. It usually falls between March 19th and March 21st. Most often, it'll fall on March 20th. So this is the day and night where this is when day and night are nearly equal in time. So the sun crosses the celestial equator moving northward. So some themes for Astra include balance, fertility, and new beginnings. So people will celebrate by decorating eggs, which can kind of make sense if you are somebody who celebrates Easter. You notice that a lot of the times during the Easter celebrations, people color eggs. Well, Astra, that was something from way long time ago to celebrate the spring equinox was decorating eggs. People will also plant seeds, spend time outdoors, and do rituals that are focused on balance. So a lot of things that seem similar for people who don't practice or don't know a lot about paganism. When spring is coming, you decorate eggs, you start planting your flowers. Everybody wants to get outside because the weather's getting nicer. Well, these are all part of actually celebrating the spring equinox and celebrating Astra as far as the wheel of the year goes in paganism, which I think is really cool. And I would never knock other people's religions. Like, I respect other people's religions. I wasn't there when paganism was created. I have noticed that a lot of more modern religions and traditions are kind of like another version of something that was already out there. So it just gives me a lot more respect for the whole paganism spirituality. So basically, this is when potential becomes action. So people will do rituals focused on balance at this time and celebrating the spring equinox. So the next one we're going to talk about is another one of the in between Sabbats. It's called Beltane, and it's traditionally celebrated on May 1st. So this is the true midpoint between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. So now we're going from the spring equinox, we're slowly heading into the summer solstice. So in between, we celebrate Beltane, and that usually lands around May 4th or 5th. But like I said, traditionally, in the ancient Celtic tradition, they fixed Beltane to always be celebrated on May 1st. So, again, one thing that I've said before that I love with paganism is that it's not exactly black or white. You can kind of make it your own in the way it resonates with you. If for some reason celebrating it like the tradition on May 1st is what you want, or if you would rather look up the exact date that it might fall on between May 4th and 5th, whatever resonates with you. So this was one of the great fire festivals, many years ago, and it was marked by bonfires that were actually lit for protection and blessing. Ways to celebrate this, or before that, themes of Beltane include passion, fertility, joy, and abundance. So, some ways that people will celebrate this is by lighting a bonfire or a candle. So, if weather permits, it would be a nice time to go outside and light a bonfire. I think that's something I would definitely do depending on when the dates fall and the weather. But yeah, people will light a bonfire. If that's not an option for you, you can light candles. People will wear flowers or make a floral crown. That's an interesting one. People will celebrate love and creativity, and they will focus on manifestation. Beltane is what they say is life in full bloom. So I think I'll definitely light some candles or a bonfire. Wearing flowers, that's an interesting one. I don't typically wear flowers, but maybe. So now we're moving into the summer solstice, and that is actually called Litha. And it usually falls between June 20th and June 22nd. And as most often, it usually falls on June 21st most of the time. So basically, when you see it's the first day of summer. Yeah, summer solstice, also called Litha. This is the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere. The sun reaches its highest point in the sky on this day. So ancient sites like the Stonehenge align with the solstice sunrise, showing how long humans have actually honored this day. Some themes around the summer solstice include power, abundance, gratitude, and illumination. When I say power, I don't mean an evil type of power because I don't believe in evil like that. I do everything with good intentions. Some ways that people will celebrate is to watch the sunrise or the sunset. I love that. Mm. I like watching the sunrise and the sunset anyway, so that's a great idea. It'd be a good time to get pictures. Make sun water. I've never made sun water. That's a new one to me. Uh, I make moon water every full moon, but I haven't done sun water yet, so that's something I'm definitely gonna do, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about that in another episode and give you details on how to make sun water. People will also gather herbs and celebrate achievements. Gathering herbs is a good time because if you were planting things during the spring equinox, now we're moving into summer, things are starting to grow. So you might be able to go and gather herbs if that's something you do. If you plant them and grow them, I'd like to grow some of my own. So the summer solstice, this is the sun at its peak. So the next one that we're going to talk about is called Lughnasadh. It's also called Lammas. Yeah, it sounds like a llama. Yes. But it's Lughnasadh, it's traditionally celebrated on August 1st. So this is, again, one of the, in-between ones. This is the true midpoint between the summer solstice and the fall equinox. So we're moving from summer solstice slowly into fall. This usually falls towards the end of the summer around August 6th or 7th, which I know is August is still summer, but we're getting into the last months of the summer. So it usually falls around August 6th or 7th. In ancient Ireland, this festival honored the god Lu and marked the first grain harvest. So, themes around this will include harvest, gratitude, skill, and sacrifice. People will celebrate this by baking bread. That's a good one. I've never actually made bread before, but it's something I would definitely give a try. Sharing a meal with others. So if you think of harvest, then you kind of think of Thanksgiving. For those who celebrate Thanksgiving, that's kind of, similar. Reflecting on accomplishments and then supporting local agriculture. So definitely a way to support local agriculture is if you have farmers markets in your area. I love going to farmers markets. You can definitely support those. It definitely helps your local agriculture. And this one, Lunasa, is about honoring what your effort has grown. So the next one we're going to talk about is the fall equinox, which is also called Mabon. So the fall equinox is called Mabon. It usually falls between September 21st and 24th. Most oftentimes it'll fall on September 22nd or 23rd. So again, day and night here are nearly equal, but this time the light is decreasing as the sun crosses the celestial equator southward. So as we're heading into winter, in a lot of places the light is decreasing and the daytime will not last as long. It'll get darker earlier. So themes around the fall equinox include balance, gratitude, and release. Fall is actually my favorite time of year, so I can't wait to celebrate the fall equinox. Some ways to celebrate would be by making a gratitude list, which that's a great one. Decorate with autumn foods. So when you talk autumn foods, I usually think gourds, pumpkins, squash, usually those kinds of different things. Donating to others is a way that people will celebrate. I love that. That definitely goes along with um my other project that I do, the nonprofit organization that I'm working on starting called Love in Action. Check that out. So donating to others, that'd be a great one for me to do. It ties in with both things that I work on, really. And also beginning reflective practices. This is the harvest exhale, they call it. So the last one we're going to talk about is my favorite one, and that is Samhain, more commonly known as Halloween. But I love that it's actually called Samhain and it's traditionally celebrated on October 1st. So this is the true midpoint between the fall equinox before we move into the winter solstice. So it usually lands around November 6th in ancient Celtic lands. Samhain marked the end of the harvest and the beginning of the darker half of the year. So many will consider it the spiritual new year. So the themes of this one that would include ancestors, transformation, and a lot of the times it is believed that this is the thinning of the veil between worlds, between the world of life and the world of death. So, a lot of ways that people will celebrate would be to create an ancestor altar. I don't actually have a lot of information on my ancestors. That's one of my goals is to get more information on my roots and kind of trace back and learn more about my ancestors. I do have some people that I have lost, mainly my brother. Well, if you want to be technical, he was my stepbrother, but I considered him a brother and I did lose him a few years back, and I think because one of the other ways that people will celebrate is to light candles for their loved ones, so I think that's something I would do for him, would be to light a candle for him. I actually wear a necklace every day that my mom gave me with, it's a pair of angel wings and a heart, and it has his ashes in it. So I like that, I like, the lighting the candles for the loved ones, I think that that's something I would do, and if I learn more about my ancestors, then I could definitely create an ancestor altar, that would be really cool. People will also journal about what they're releasing. which I love to do. I use journaling as a release tactic for a lot of things anyway, so and then people will practice protection rituals. I like that as well, especially because it is considered a time when the veil between the 2 worlds is thinning, so I don't know what all is over in the other world and what darkness could be around, so I like the protection rituals. I actually just recently did, a protection ritual last Sunday because Sundays are actually good days for those, and the moon phase lined up that it would've been a good time to do that kinda ritual, so that's I did that. So Samhain honors, endings, and the reason it honors endings is so that beginnings can follow. So they don't look at it as, a sad thing they honor the endings because that means new beginnings, are gonna follow. So those are the 8 different Sabbats throughout the wheel of the year. So the wheel of the year, it teaches us that life is, as they say, cyclical, not linear. So the solstices and the equinoxes are astronomically timed events that will shift slightly each year, like I said. The cross-quarter Sabbats, which are the ones that are in between the solstices and the equinoxes, they were traditionally fixed to calendar dates. So even though their exact midpoint varies, they have those fixed dates on when they're actually celebrated. So, but beyond the dates, the deeper teaching is the rhythm, what resonates with you, how you want to celebrate, when you want to celebrate. So, you've got a season for planting, you've got a season for harvest, you've got a season for celebrating, and then you've got a season for rest. And then you also have the season for light and the season for shadow. So, I really like the way that's put. I like the rhythm. So, you plant the seeds, then you get to harvest them. You get to do the celebrating and then you get to rest. You embrace the light, but then also appreciate the shadow. So, when we align ourselves with those sacred turns of the wheel, we stop fighting the cycle and we start moving with it. So if you're somebody who wants to start celebrating these things like I am this year, if you're new to the wheel of the year, you might be wondering how to start celebrating without feeling overwhelmed and all of a sudden you feel like you need all these things and to do all these things. But the truth is you don't have to be elaborate about it. These rituals do not have to be elaborate. You do not have to spend a ton of money or have it, be some perfect thing. The wheel of the year and the celebration comes from your intention, comes from within you. So as long as your intentions behind it, your heart is in it, that's really what matters. So just start simple. You can add to it every year, whenever you want to celebrate or over time. So start simple. Just begin with something simple like noticing the seasons around you. Notice that if we're in spring equinox, notice if, we're in winter solstice, things like that. So on each Sabbath, you can just step outside if that's an option for you. Feel the temperature, look at the trees, notice what's growing or what's blooming, notice if the leaves are now changing colors, they're falling off the trees, the flowers are starting to go away for the year, things like that. It all depends obviously on where you live in the world because weather and temperatures and climates are all different. But you can also do other simple things like lighting the candles, speaking about your intentions that will match with that season. Journal about where you are in your own personal cycle. Cook a meal that's seasonal. I feel like a lot of us do that anyway. In the summertime, a lot of people like to go outside and grill. When it's fall, a lot of people get the urge to make, soups and use the crock pot and things like that. At least that's how I am. So you can cook a seasonal meal. You can decorate your space with very simple natural items. Go outside and find leaves, get flowers, pine cones, acorns, anything like that from nature. You can take all that stuff and just decorate your space with that stuff. And then you can also just read about the history and the folklore connected to each Sabbath. There's all kinds of stuff out there you can read if you want to learn more and break them down even farther than I did. And even if you feel like celebrating all 8 of these is like too much to start with, then just start with the solstices and the equinoxes. Start with those 4 and then slowly work in the cross-quarter Sabbats at a later time. You don't have to start celebrating them, all at once. The equinoxes and the solstices can be a little easier to start with because they're easier to track each year, if that's what you'd rather start with, or you can just choose the Sabbath that resonates with you the most right now. If one of those just sounds more important to you, maybe you have a favorite holiday, maybe your favorite holiday is Christmas and you're somebody who celebrates Christmas but also wants to celebrate Yule or that just sounds like that's the one that's really resonating with you, then just worry about celebrating that one because there's no right or wrong way to observe the wheel of the year. So, some people will practice it spiritually, some people will honor it as a nature-based thing, and some people like to blend it together. I really am a nature person. I really appreciate nature and what it gives us, what it represents, what it can do for us. So I definitely like a nature-based rhythm, but I also will tie in the spirituality of it. So I like to do that as well. So I do like a blend. But like I have said in, multiple episodes, the most important thing is your intentions and your intentions behind it. That is where the focus comes from. So the wheel of the year isn't about perfection, it's about connection. So connection to nature, connection to time, connection to yourself. Even something as simple as pausing for 5 minutes on during a Sabbat and asking, what season am I in currently? That's enough to begin. So you can start very simply and you can always add to things, change things as you go. Do what resonates with you. You don't necessarily have to follow the traditions that I gave you. You can if you want, or you can come up with your own. Again, that's the best part about paganism is it's really about intentions and you can really make it your own a lot of the times and just do what resonates with you the most. So thank you so much for walking this journey with me. If you enjoyed this episode, leave your feedback in the comments. I'd also love to hear about your experiences celebrating the Sabbats or what you know about the Wheel of the Year and answer any questions that you may have so you can leave those as well. Also, I'd love it if you would leave a rating on the podcast. It helps others find me. Don't forget to share, follow, and subscribe. And if you want to celebrate along with the Wheel of the Year, I've included the exact 2026 dates for each Sabbat in the show notes. So go ahead and check that out. You can use them to plan your rituals, your seasonal reflections, or just to pause and notice the natural rhythms around you. So be sure to check out the show notes so you can follow along with the seasons no matter where you are. And come sit around the cauldron with me next week when we talk about symbols within paganism. I'll be waiting to welcome you to the coven, and as always, stay magical.